I implore any students who are involved, who are in the library right now, to please leave the library peacefully.
That was a message from the president of Portland State University for what police believe could be dozens of students who are now barricaded inside the school's library.
Investigators say they broke into the building last night as part of a pro-Palestine protest, and they've been there for hours now. Fox's Carly Olson is joining us now from the scene. Carly?
Good morning. Well, it's been a pretty quiet scene here since we arrived about an hour ago, and there are a few people around the steps of the library right now, but mostly the steps are covered in signs and Palestine flags. Portland Police Chief Bob Day told us that last night there were between 50 and 75 people who broke into the library here on the PSU campus. Those people have been occupying the library since then, and he said if people don't leave the library, they will have to start making arrests and prosecuting. This all started yesterday afternoon when hundreds gathered on the Portland State University campus for a largely peaceful pro-Palestine rally to join similar demonstrations at college campuses across the nation. Take a look, a large crowd rallied right in front of the Solidarity encampment that's been occupying a part of the downtown Portland campus for days now. We saw campus security driving by and police monitoring the area during the rally, but no arrests were made at the time. Students say they're fighting for a ceasefire in Gaza, but also voicing concern to university officials over the school's relationship with Boeing due to the company's ties with Israel. But after the library break-in last night, local leaders held a press conference saying they encourage free speech, but criminal activity is taking it too far.
Universities are set up with the understanding that people go there to explore the competition of ideas, and that's a noble purpose. But when people engage in criminal destruction and acts of violence, that is no longer the debate of ideas, and that is no longer peaceful protest. That is criminal activity.
And even though Chief Day did say that they would have to start making arrests if people did not leave the library, he said there was no set timeline for when officers would be entering the library themselves. And like I said, it's been pretty quiet here on campus this morning, but we will be keeping you posted here on the air throughout the morning. Reporting live in downtown Portland, Carly Olson, Good Day Oregon.
All right, Carly.